if you have one scandal, the way you deal with it is just to produce another and overlay it on top of the previous scandal. He seems to be able to confuse people constantly with a never-ending string of increasingly dire scandals. And well, I don't understand it, that's for sure, but here we are.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, under investigation again for violating ethics rules, testified in his own defense today and denied he or anyone in cabinet gave preferential treatment to the We charity.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is dealing with a growing scandal tonight. It involves what he allegedly told a top official to do about a major company involved in a corruption investigation.
Justin Trudeau continued to face questions about a 2.5-year-old scandal on the campaign trail today.
Have you ever personally been contacted by the RCMP about the SNC-Lavalin affair?
No, I have not.
This Prime Minister has a track record of not completing what he starts and bragging about what he hasn't done. And that has spilled over into his policy positions, whether it's his promises to complete, for example, a Trans Mountain pipeline gone $27 billion over budget, still not done.
So in Canada, for those of you who are watching and listening, the provinces in the west of Canada are pretty heavily resource-based, and Canada's a resource-based economy still in many ways. And our federal government seems to have adopted a globalist agenda, I think that's fair to say, and believe that, human beings, especially those in Western Canada, are doing nothing but raping poor Mother Earth constantly. And so they produce legislation in a never-ending string to do nothing but devastate the economies of the West. And of course, while they're saving the planet. And Tamara started to see some of that, or not saving the planet, which is really the truth.
They brought in the legislation, and I want to say it was around 2018-19. They passed the bills C-69 and C-48. So Bill C-69 has been nicknamed the No More Pipelines Bill, and basically what they've done is they've made it virtually impossible and definitely not feasible for anyone to lay a pipeline with all their environmental this and that. And of course, Bill C-48, which was the No More Tanker, well, basically it was a ban on Alberta oil tankers leaving the BC coast.
Right.
All the other tankers, ferries, cruise ships are okay, just not if it's carrying any oil from Alberta. Mm-hmm. And what that did was it hurt a lot of families. People that I knew and that I cared about were losing their jobs and couldn't find jobs. And the situation I specifically referred to last night, because I'll never forget it, was a grown man, and this happened frequently, but he's the one that broke down. But a grown man coming into my office 2 weeks before Christmas because he just lost his job and begging me for a job with tears in his eyes, please take my resume. And it was heartbreaking and devastating. And for what? I mean, I worked in that industry. I understand the process. I mean, our Canadian energy is the most environmentally friendly and efficient way to extract our resources than anywhere on the planet. And we should be screaming that from the rooftops. But again, we're made to feel ashamed and like our oil is dirty, and I was dumbfounded.
Yeah, well, the question is, dirty compared to what? Dirty compared to Middle Eastern tyrant oil, or dirty compared to Russian oil, for example, in oil and gas? Yeah. It's like, and the same thing applies on the pipeline front and the tanker front too. So Alberta still moves its oil and gas around, oil in particular. It does that on rail cars, which is a very inefficient way of doing it. It's also very dangerous because it passes through cities, and we've had the odd catastrophe in Canada as a consequence of that. And so, yeah, and what the Trudeau government has done is made pipeline development so prohibitively expensive that no corporation in its right mind would take a risk on it. And I don't know how long that'll propagate out into the future, because the corporations have learned that the Canadian government is an unreliable partner. And these are long-term projects, and so that's a catastrophe. And this is a big deal for the rest of the world. The German Chancellor came to Canada last year, and so did the Japanese Prime Minister, basically cap in hand, and the German Chancellor was a socialist, by the way, which is sort of relevant in this context. Desperate enough, nonetheless, to come and talk to his socialist buddy, Trudeau, and really beg in some ways for Canada to open up its vast natural gas resources to the European Union and aid our great allies, and our partners in freedom, let's say. And Trudeau said, I can't make a business case for that, which basically meant that we've produced legislation in Canada that's crippled our industry so badly that no one could possibly make a business case for anything because of the red tape and idiocy that was put in there purposefully, although also ineptly, just so the feds could virtue signal about destroying the economy to save the planet. And then the Japanese Prime Minister showed up a couple of months later and asked for the same thing and got exactly the same response. And so instead of Canada benefiting from the billions of dollars that the Europeans and the Japanese could spend, while we were supporting our allies, Japan, who's threatened by China, and obviously the European Union, who's threatened by Russia, we left them to the tender mercies of our apparent enemies because Canada is opposed to what Russia is doing in Ukraine, for example, and we forfeited that immense economic benefit that Canadians could have accrued. It could hardly be stupider.